It's wonderful to have you here, Donna. How are you today?
Good. I'm sitting on my little island in the winter wonderland of Stockholm,
Stockholm in Sweden.
in Sweden. Yeah.
Exactly, my motherland, a place that holds very, very fond memories for me. Just tell me, for people who've never been to the part of Sweden that you're in, how would you describe it, Donna?
Stockholm is the biggest city in Sweden. That being said, it's just slightly over 1 million people, so that's not much. Um, I'm actually just slightly outside the city limits on a little island in the Swedish archipelago. It's not a big island. There's no cars. Everything is walk it in the hills. But it's and you get here with a boat and get out of here with a boat. So it's if you want quiet and no one to knock on your door randomly, it's a place to be.
And I was loving the fact that in our pre-chat, Donna, you were basically on a ferry through the islands of the Stockholm archipelago. I mean, it was like a way to make this father of two about to go on the school run feel like I wanted your life because it was so idyllic as you were on the ferry.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was doing ferry that day. Well, at least I wasn't on one of our boats. Then it would be way too noisy.
No, well, it's all good. So, Donna, it's such a pleasure to have you here, and I wonder if you would tell the audience first about you growing up.
Oh, goodness, me growing up. Yeah, I grew up in a big city of 14 million people in a big state in the United States, Texas. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, didn't see that coming." But grew up in Houston, Texas, with a big family that is really big family, six siblings, plus me and 53 cousins. So it was a small village of little Texans running around. It was a beautiful place to grow up. Not particularly Houston, but Texas in general, because it was it was the late 70s, early 80s, and we had free reign and no phones and nothing to hold us back, and we got to pretty much run around like crazy people until the lights went off and we had to go home.
Wow. And I bet um, that time in Texas was quite a fascinating time to be there. I mean, obviously, in popular culture, it was so, in the UK, we only had four television stations, and one of the television stations, basically, their entire output was Dallas. So, like,
Yeah.
what was Texas like in the 80s? I mean, tell us a bit
Yeah.
more about that.
I mean, it was cowboys. I mean, I come from, my father was a developer, but my family is oil and chemical people. So there were the occasional ranch and oil field, and sometimes taking a helicopter out to check out a new oil field, and that's just it doesn't sound like what normal people do, but Texas is so big, sometimes it's just hard to drive. But it was cowboy boots and your formal hat, your summer hat, your winter hat. My dad had a barbecue team um, called the Sauerkrauts. He was a German. His family's from Germany. Um, and he took that big 18-wheeler barbecue pit around Texas and competed in barbecue cook-offs. And being as many kids as we were, we got to go with because it was just kind of to give the other part of or my mom some peace. So it would load us all up and we would all go out and compete making barbecue. But so I mean, and it's not so unusual for Texas. And at a barbecue kickoff, you dance. I mean, so you learned how to two-step, you learned how to Cotton Eye Joe, you learned how to dance like a Texan, and it was a lot of fun days and fun nights at these strange, big old barbecue cook-offs.
Well, I mean, I absolutely love that because I'm obsessed with barbecue. And be, I don't know about you, but I think the most depressing thing in the world is going to a poorly done barbecue. When you go somewhere and they've just like, it's totally charred on the outside and then totally raw on the inside. Is it just me, or is that like a crime against good barbecue,
Yeah, it
Donna?
hurts my feel, or oftentimes, you know what, I kind of wheedle my way in. Anybody that's barbecuing, I will wheedle my way in to kind of slowly take over the barbecue pit, just so
Like a barbecue rescue.
yeah, ju- I feel like I'm doing something of value, number one, and secondly, I want to somehow guarantee the outcome. So, so it's or micromanage. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's my super positive trait, but I do that. But I mean, being in Sweden, that's not their superpower. So I figured I get in there as a Texan and cook, or at least grill.
Well, it's fantastic. It's like that thing in an interview where people say, like, "What's your biggest weakness?" And it's just like, "Oh, I'm too much of a team player." And it's like, "No, I just basically always leap in when people do crap barbecue." That would be the thing I'm now going to always say in any interview for any
Yeah.
job or like client I ever go for. Just be like, somebody massacring the barbecue. I literally can't stand back.
I try to hold back. I try to like go, okay, I'm gonna go get something to drink. I'm gonna look the other way, and then I just look over and go, oh, and then I eventually just kind of, I'm in front of the grill, and it's like every single time I'm like, I'm so sorry I took over. I was just trying to help. And oh,
And the hiring manager will be sitting there sort of saying like, is this a sort of euphemism for something else, or are we actually talking about barbecue? No, actually about barbecue.
just
Um,
barbecue. Everything else, I'm pretty sure there's other people that are really good at it, but that one I hope I'm fairly good at.
that's a
Yeah,
hill we both will die on. Um, Donna, I first came across you when you were at Fjällräven, probably a name that I have woefully mispronounced. So why don't you basically start off by, or sort of tell us a bit now about yourself and about your current role, which I know is not Fjällräven, but tell us just a little bit about your career to date.
okay. I'll try to do a quick one since I've been around a while. So, yes, I mean, right now I am a senior advisor for future materials. That's super fun. And I get to take the world's ideas and see potential and help them scale and hopefully create future materials that we need, some new ideas. I also sit as chief product officer for a manufacturing company, two manufacturers in Europe and one in Vietnam. So it's my ultimate peek behind the curtain to learn or I would say, to apply everything that I've learned in running brands and creating product, and then really going in and learning that other part that you never get really the opportunity to learn. So now I've got my hands in the production process, which is super fun and quite difficult, more difficult than I ever imagined it could be, but inspiring at the same. And then, of course, I mean, for the vast majority of the last 20 some odd years, I've run or I've helped to run in cooperation with a few team members as chief product officer for Fjällräven. And if you ask Åke, who can't anymore, he was our founder and he passed away. He would say I absolutely massacred that name as well. If you ask if you ask Martin Axelhead, he would say it's pretty good, but still an absolute failure. But even after that many years, I still I don't have the Fjällräven. You gotta twirl the R.
Well, I grew up speaking Swedish, and I mean, obviously, you and I have had a few sort of faltering conversations. Entirely my fault in sort of Swedish with your fluent Swedish. But my wife always says that who's British, but she's always said that if you want to say something in Swedish, you just say it in English with a surprised accent. So that's kind of yeah, it's
That's fair. Yeah.
it's not always an easy language to learn, Swedish.
No, no. I mean, actually, I would say grammatically and technically, it's fairly easy to learn if you compare it to Finnish, for example. That's impossible, or not impossible, but it's very difficult. Um, but to pronounce everything correctly, as all languages, when you're here and you're born and raised here, there's always somebody that's like so close, so very close, but no.
Yeah, and it's also the difference between the sort of central bit of Sweden, but then if you like go to the very north or you go down to the south, and then the whole sort of regional accents are so different as well, aren't they?
Absolutely. In the north, I actually do fairly well in the north because they speak very little. They save all their words for maybe three important words that they really want to say, and then you can do a lot of breathing sounds to either affirm or reject information. So that one I'm fairly good at, and I learned from the best. Being at Fjällräven for many years, I learned Norrlandsk as well as I could.
Well, I love that. And I mean, one of the things we're talking about as I interview leaders from across our industry is really about decisions that they faced in their professional career. And we're going to talk about a particular sort of decision that's been part of your career. And I wonder if before we sort of get into the sort of main part of that, you could just talk to us a little bit about what the status quo was before you came to your decision, Donna.
Hmm. I mean, I think I was I guess about 8 years in, 9 years in to my tenure at Fjällräven, and I kind of started in production and then and put my nose in everything and was really curious and had opinions. So they let me, thank goodness, they let me do whatever I wanted, whatever door I wanted to open. They just kind of allowed me to walk through it, and as long as I looked back and said, "Yeah, are we good?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, go." So it was I guess about a good 8 years in, and I was lucky enough to get the opportunity from Martin Axelhead to just he said, Donna, why don't you just take the whole thing, take design and buying and production and just take it all and see what you can do with it because it seems like you have the energy and well, at that point I did. Um, but I think the status was that we were still growing. We were an old company, but in our souls, we were still young. Åke had given us all he could give us, I suppose. Although he wouldn't, he was always telling me how much I was doing everything absolutely incorrect, which was true most of the time. And they would reteach me how to do stuff. He's like, "That's not how you make a down jacket. What are you crazy?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, show me, big man." So he would show me what he meant, and but we were growing, and at times at just this cusp, we were starting to get a little bit of speed wobbles, and i when something starts to get bigger than you are, then you need to pay attention to what you're doing. And I think that was on the cusp of where I think Martin Axelhead and I felt like we needed to make a few decisions to keep us in line because it wasn't just a couple of us sitting around having a conversation going, "You want to do this? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's do that." It was a few more people involved and a bigger teams. So we kind of needed to or I would say, yeah, we kind of needed to draw a line in this sand and say, this is what we stand for. Um, and yeah, of course, taking into consideration everything that we've stood for before as well. So we had our history with us, but we also we wanted to do a few things that meant something, I think, for the future of the business and the future generations.
I absolutely love that. And so you've teed us up beautifully. Tell us about the decision that you actually were facing and what you decided to do, Donna.
I think my admiration for one individual that is so passionate, it was really spurred this entire thing. This gentleman's name is Stefan Posner, and I don't know if you know him, but he's always been my personal rock star. He's such a humble guy. He'd never know it. He would never know. I've just admired everything he's done, and he worked for the Swedish Chemical Agency of I would say regulations, helping you make decisions on chemical guidance and things like that. And he would come to Fjällräven. We invited him to Fjällräven once a year to kind of just give us updates on chemicals and what's going on and what's important, what's not important, just so we stayed up to date with and had a general understanding of how chemicals operate within our industry. And we were having a conversation, or he was teaching a few of us what was going on. And there were so many conversations going on about not just like forever chemicals that we were, but it was the first conversation we had in 2008 about forever chemicals and some other chemicals within our processes in creating product. And of course, the forever chemicals seemed, well, it kind of is what it says it is. It didn't seem like it was something that even if we make it go away, we've done the damage. And he explained it in a really good way. And after that, after Stefan left, I sat down with Maxi, or Martin Axelhead, the current and then CEO of Fjällräven, and he and I were speaking about chemical in general. And I think where we got to was, obviously we need to make some bigger decisions regarding forever chemicals, because that doesn't seem like, it seems really bad. That we could agree on. But as we continued our conversation, everything that we were doing then, that, we were being sold in by, fantastic salespeople about, anti-wrinkle, anti-odor, antibacterial, anti-this, anti-that, something to make you sweat, not sweat, make your sweat smell like strawberries, everything. It was like ordering cheese on a hamburger. Everything cost $1. It's like you can get anything you want on your fabric, as long as it, you got $1, you can pay $1 extra and get pretty much anything. But the part that bothered me was much of this chemical that you added to the product, it didn't last the lifetime of the garment. And so when we started having this discussion, Stefan and I, and also some of my suppliers, I said, so how long does this stuff last? The miracle chemical. And they were like, yeah, it should last about 10 washes. I'm like, what am I really selling? What are we really, and that's the conversation Maxie and I got into, is like, what are we really selling here? If we say that we're making, generational products that are really hard wearing, that should, last a lifetime, or even 2, 3, if something that we're selling it based on is gone in 10 washes, then this doesn't seem like the two things match very well. At that point, he and I decided that, why don't we just take them all away if we can? As much as we can, let's take it away, because if we can't achieve it by the knowledge of construction, and this challenged me and my team, that, how much do we really know about the construction, how to create a function by construction versus just, pay the extra $1 and put a chemical on it and everything works for at least 10 washes. So all of those things, Martin and I made a decision at that point that, number one, we were going to phase out PFAS. We had to figure out what it was in and what it was and how many of them are there, and I think everybody's still figuring that out. And how to get rid of it.
And those are the forever chemicals, aren't they?
Yeah, those are the forever chemicals. All the C chemicals that C6, C at that point C8, C10. And even, what they call C0, that may or may not be 0. And also all the places that you don't even know where they are. And as I said, we're still learning. The challenge with taking away all of these chemicals is, good chemicals are good. They work. Most of them work. PFAS and the forever chemicals, they worked really well. They worked so well that you could never get rid of them. Others were easier to take away, like anti-odor. Use wool. Wool it doesn't like bacteria. It doesn't like that to grow bacteria, so it doesn't. So if you put something in wool, or put enough wool in something, you can probably do that. So we were learning at that phase about how to then say no to, or take out everything that does not last the lifetime of the garment. And it started that I think it started a big conversation for Fjällräven, that we, of course, there were compromises. There were huge compromises that when we got rid of certain chemicals, things did not work as well because, again, good chemicals are good. They're there because they really work. Um, and there may not be a solution. And I think even this many years down the road, the challenges are that you can't just take all the chemicals away because then the product doesn't not last very long. If you don't use silicone in treating materials, what happens is the material degrades very quickly, especially when you're using cottons and things like that. So I have to not go down the rabbit hole. So I leave it at that for that part. You'll have to follow up with more questions because, yeah, I'm not sure where to leave that off. It's a rabbit hole.
I mean, I'm all about the rabbit hole, Donna. This is so fascinating. And I mean, I love this idea of the trade-offs that you're having to make, and this idea of this sort of team of, or individual and perhaps team of scientists who are saying, hey, you could do this, and suppliers saying you could do this, but you saying, how do we make something that you buy it and it lasts generation to generation to generation? And I wonder, what were the sort of major barriers? Like, did you face pushback when you started to say, hey, we're going to remove all these allegedly miracle sort of chemicals from our products? Like, what, if any, barriers did you face or pushback did you face?
Oh, I think the only two people that weren't pissed off at me was Martin, or Martin and myself. He was like, "Nah, just ignore everybody,
You
Donna.
weren't
Just
pissed
keep
off at
going."
yourself, Donna.
Yeah, no, I was on my own team, thank goodness. But Martin and I, he it's like we felt like it was a fairly easy decision, so at least I had myself and Martin to root on our team. But first off, our sales team was really confused because you when you're going out to sell, you want the whistle and the bell and the little extra adding on top. Hey, but we've got this, we've got coffee and carbon dust from bamboo and all these fantastic things that are good in the big scheme of things. And some of them are. I mean, some of these additives that last the lifetime of the product, they're brilliant, and I think that we should continue to push that. But yeah, we got a ton of pushback from our sales teams first because they were competing with other brands that whistled and belled everything. That, as I said, you can have outdoor gear that didn't smell after 2 weeks of wear and didn't wrinkle as long as you didn't wash it. It was fine. So everything, you came out of your bag looking perfect. But that wasn't what we were offering because we knew that didn't last. Once you got to the 11th wash, then you have a wrinkled, smelly shirt in your bag. But I think the biggest pushback is when we could not match the function one-to-one. And that came, of course, first by our sales teams, then by our customers, that the customer would say, hey, but how can you even explain to us that you want to take payment for this product? And Fjällräven, we all know, is not we'd rather sell less for more than more for less. Thank goodness for Åke for that one. He had our back on that. But how can you guys stand up here and create a product that is not as good and charge what you do? And that was there were a few times that I couldn't really answer that question. I mean, especially when it came to PFAS, and we took away sea chemicals, and we were working with a great Swiss company with this Dandramere system, and it was the first non-sea chemical DWR out there, and it wasn't really that good. So you would have to reapply it all the time, and I stood up there time after time and said, "You're right, it's not as good." but we know that in the long run, this type of chemical is doing more damage than it's doing good. So we're okay with the fact that you're going to have to care for your garment just a little bit more than you would normally have to care from it, care for it with another brand. Um,
And how did you manage
and
your mindset during that period, Donna? I mean, your sales team are saying this is going to be harder
yeah,
to sell.
it
Your
was,
customers are telling you you're asking us for more money for less product.
yeah,
Like, how did
so I
you
wasn't
manage
always
your
popular.
how
Um,
did you manage your mindset during that period?
I kind of knew. I mean, I think for me, it was quite a basic thought that again, what are we really making? And I think when I got one on one with some of the customers, because the sales teams they were just like you're killing us, so they were hard to kind of get on my side. But if I can get the customers on our side, then it got a little bit easier for the sales teams. But I think when I was allowed to get one on one with a customer and explain that what are you selling? If you have a person come into your shop and you say buy this one, it's the best, and they come back in 6 months and said, I've worn it almost every day for 6 months. And in the beginning, it was like a fantastic, and then but now it's threadbare. It doesn't work. All the things that you sold it on are not there anymore. What do you stand for? What makes you proud? And some don't care, but many did, and many that was the threshold that I needed to be able to get over with them to make them see what I saw. And I was okay with. I didn't need to change the world for other brands, but I needed to do that for this brand because of what Åke taught me, and what was important to him. That I mean, the world doesn't need more stuff, but the stuff that we have, let's make it really, really good so people can use it a long time. And it made sense to me. So there were some thresholds to get over. The PFAS one, it was tougher. I mean, but the alternatives to PFAS, even in membrane and in DWRs and durability products, has gotten much better to where it's not a total massacre standing on stage and trying to explain yourself.
No, that's so fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing that insight, Donna. I I'm also really curious about the extent to which brand can pick up some of that slack. You start to turn, let's say one turns down the volume on ingredients and novelty of ingredients and chemicals in this example. Does brand take up some of that slack? Is the way in which you story tell and market a way through that, or does that not sit with the vision that you've just outlined, which is like we build it once, it lasts forever, and you don't need to replace it once, but you're going to pay a higher premium? Like, talk to me a little bit about that trade-off, and maybe it's not a trade-off, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Donna.
I just want to make sure I understand the question. Repeat that because I'm not sure I get the
Yeah, it's
question.
just
Sorry.
like you really fascinatingly shared an insight that you had to get rid of some of these chemicals, perhaps downgrade the performance of garments, etc., etc. Can brand step into that sort of breach? Can it take some of that slack? Can it explain some of that thinking to the customer? Like, what role does brand play in a decision like this?
I think I mean, brands in general. That's a lot of our purpose is not just to do and create and as I said, solve problems because at least in the outdoor industry, that's what we're doing, is solving problems. It's it's actually telling the story of why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's when people fall in love with brands, is when the brand itself has a soul and has an opinion and has a why and understands what problems are we trying to solve. So I think that's exactly the role of the brand, is to try to get as many people to sit where you sit and see what you see. And if you can, people will join you. And I think Fjällräven, over the years, I mean, that was my personal admiration of the brand, was that again and again and again, our mission was to solve problems and make, I would say, continue the love affair between the Swedish people and then eventually, hopefully, the world, of this strange little brand that is very, that just kind of, as we all do as individuals, try to do our own thing and try to make something good.
And in no way is it strange. Like, I want to give a shout out to my aunt's sadly now deceased husband Lasse, who was a cross country skier in Sweden. Like, he was my first exposure to Fjällräven. Then my grandmother, our kids have had Kanken backpacks, all of this sort of stuff. I've even had, I think I mentioned to you in the pre-chat, a Fjällräven Greenland jacket blow out of the roof box of my car on a French autoroute. I mean, this is a brand
That
that
kind of hurts my
not.
soul a little. I mean, it's like, oh
And I
man.
told you as well, I wasn't. We ultimately weren't prepared to do 100 kilometer detour to risk our safety trying to get this thing back on the back on the motorway. But you had very interestingly told me about something about name patches inside, or this little label that you offered long-term owners of jackets or of apparel. Could you tell us just a little bit more about that? Because I just love that detail so much,
Oh,
Donna.
I mean, you know what? Martin Axelhead and I have, we talked about this time after time. I can't really tell you how many times we have had this conversation that we were going to start
The
putting it
best
in all.
conversations are like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we were going to start putting that in all products, and we really wanted to. I mean, or at least jackets and trousers that you could, generation, because it wasn't really new. It wasn't really a patch that was new, because in the old Konkens, it has this like big white patch, and I don't know what Olka was thinking, but it was like only the logo was up there, and the rest of it was just a big white patch. And people started to put their names on their Konken bags because it was made for school kids. So of course, Johnny or Johan needs to go to school and he needs to figure out which Konken was his because there were a few Konkens at school. Um, and they started putting that in the labels in their, or I would say writing on the labels. And of course, those big long labels they lasted for a while, but Maxi and I, for so many years, we were saying, okay, we're going to permanently put these in garments, and we just never, for some reason, we never did. I don't know. I need to call him, and we need to have this discussion again because I'm disappointed in myself, and I'm disappointed in both of us. But we did have little name tags that we had. I don't know. We had woven up. And from time to time, when we would make a connection to a certain customer that was really kind of quite impersonal, it's like we would just say, "Hey, let me send you a brand book. Let me send you a couple things, some that goes to the, adds a nerdy little detail to your product if you want." Um, and as I said, why we didn't get around to putting it on every single product, or at least, you know, the products like jackets and trousers that last, a really, really long time. It's hard to put it on t-shirts. I mean, nobody wants a t-shirt with like 17 names on it.
Yeah,
But I think that's where we get confused. It was like, what about t-shirts? Oh man, tank
too
tops.
much.
Yeah,
A brand
too much.
extension too much.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you should say that though, Donna, because I look at and I showed you before, but the Go Ruck rucksack that I've got behind me, just on the back of my seat here, and two things have really sort of jumped out from their story, and I think that I think are interesting and perhaps relevant to this. One is that they sort of use, because of their sort of slightly more military sort of aesthetic and sort of history from the founder, they do a lot of like patches, and when they do events, for example, you can get a different patch that you put on the front of the rucksack. But also they've started this thing called and I'm hoping that we're going to speak to one of the product people from Go Ruck in a future podcast. Just trying to tee that up at the moment, but they do this thing called the Scars Guarantee. So if the thing gets destroyed, then they will basically like almost like completely recondition it. And the thing is, a lot of their users and use cases is for military and sort of first responder folks. And you see some of the like Instagram pictures of like destroyed bags. It's like, this was blown up in a mortar attack, and it's sort of like, one
Fair
strap left. And
business.
it's like,
Yeah.
we've actually rebuilt this thing. And I think when you're prepared to stand behind something like that, that also becomes part of the brand, if I can put it this way, legend, doesn't it, as well?
It does. And I think I mean, from my perspective, that scene is a huge success. I mean, not even a year ago, I think this gentleman sent us a picture, I think, from a pair of pants, or he sent us the pants. They were about 20 something years old, 25 years old, and a picture from almost every
That's
year.
trousers, everyone, for British listeners, not underwear,
Yeah, you're
which is
right. It's
what we call
trousers.
pants here in the
Sorry.
UK.
I'm in
No, it's
Europe.
fine. I just
My
just a
my
quick.
American comes out every once in a while. Yeah, you're right. So okay, he sent us a pair of trousers that he had been wearing for like over 20 years, and a picture from almost every year that he um, that he was with his out on a trek or by himself or with his family or whatever. And then he finally sent us he sent us the trousers and said, now I think I've really killed them. And he had repaired them time and time again, and they were patched together. And Maxi brought him into me, and he said, "Donna, what do we do with this guy?" And he said, "Look at the pictures he sent." I was like, "Wow, this is almost like a badge of honor. I'm impressed." And I looked through every single spot that he kind of reworked or we reworked or who I don't know who repaired it over the years, but he lived them till they were threadbare. And then eventually, I didn't know if, I mean, wearing the same pair of pants for 20 some odd years, the body changes a bit. So I reached out to the gentleman and said, what size are we wearing these days? Are we in the same size, or is it anything changed? He's like, yeah, they were getting a little bit tight around the waist. I'm like, okay. So I sent him the same trouser that that we, I mean, of course, we've had a couple fit updates, but in essence, it's pretty much the same. It was the Barnes trouser. Um, and sent him that trouser, and I said, okay, here's for the next 20 some odd years. Hopefully this one will serve you just as well. But anytime you see something just totally destroyed, or super patinaed in a way, it makes me proud every time I see one of those. It just makes me happy, because then that was success. And people spent the time to, you know, put a new zipper in, put a new crotch in, torn off the pocket, put the pocket back on. Not the right way, but they did their best.
Yeah, and you see it again with like some of the flight case companies as well, like Pelican and some of those. It's like the more destroyed they are, the more stickers they've got on,
Yeah,
like the more like the more this thing has been absolutely used.
you've done something in your life. It shows that you've done something in your life. And I think that's if all of our jackets and trousers can tell a story, I think for that man, he had 100 stories. And it was so sweet that he gave it back to us, because we actually put it in our I would say museum archive, for battled wounded trousers and products.
Well, Donna, wow, that 38 minutes has gone very fast.
Yeah, it tends to do that.
I know. Well, it's been so fascinating, and I think just hearing your sort of call to action, and I know a little bit about what you're about to say, but this is the point in the podcast, in which sort of I like to hand over the microphone, metaphorically speaking, to the guest, and it's just really a chance for them to say anything that's in their head or in their heart, and I wonder what message you'd like to give out to the audience of the Light the Fuse podcast.
Well, if I think about the audience, I'm hoping I have a good blend of a little bit of everything listening, meaning industry people, um, from retail to brand to manufacturing to I would say all, as we call it, tier one to tier three, tier four, but also users. I don't know who we're going to get, so I'll try to break it up in small bits. Um, For the user, call to action is wear it till it's dead. Um, that's a badge of honor. That you feel like you've really done something. Um, and buy it like you're going to try to kill it. That's always fun. Because if you don't, that's just a cop out. Come on.
Chapter 2
Um,
of my autobiography.
yeah, except buy it like you're going to try to kill it at
Yeah.
least. To brands, and I would say all of our, all of the manufacturing and material, chemical suppliers, material suppliers, everybody that's involved in making a something for one of the users out there is one for yourself. Meaning I've had so many suppliers, uh, all I mean from raw material, chemical, all the way to finished goods. Say, Donna, what do you want? What's important to you? What does the brand want? And every single time, of course, I would tell them because I had a few things that I wanted, but every single time, um, I really wanted them to tell me what they want. What is their ambition level? To push me further than I'm willing to go, and challenge brands to be better, because brands have the pressure of I would say fast consumerism. It's hard not to get caught up in it. But if if all of us in or I mean if all of us in each part of the industry has their own ambition level for what we want to create, if it is a better treatment, a better chemical, a better, I would say, function by construction, push for it and want something for yourself. Please don't wait for the brands to drag you around behind them, and don't make them drag you around behind them. If you see that the consumer is going in a certain way, and if you see that the brand is asking for something, go above and beyond, push further. Again, make us be better, because we need inspiration as well, and we need to be challenged because the it's way too easy to take the fast route.
I love that. Donna, if there's a sort of battlement nearby, I'm storming it with you. But I will be respectfully and supportively taking the lead at moments, allowing you to take the lead at other moments. But you've certainly given a huge amount to think about, and really, really loved our conversation. Um, Thank you so much. Just for the sort of non-Swedes in the audience, what will you do at the end of your day that people who are not Swedish won't recognise? Like, how do you finish a workday? What's the first thing you do when you're like, right, I've kicked the shoes off, now I'm home? What do you do just to be like, the working day is done? What's next, Donna?
Oh, if it's if it's summer in Sweden, I take an extra lap around the island on my boat, and I do it kind of slow. Sometimes I go fast too. So sometimes when I need to some speed, I take a couple laps around the island because it downloads my brain from the day, and I get to be in the nature that I love to be in, and see, I would say, Stockholm from a perspective and everything. It's like everything in perspective. So I really enjoy that. And when I finally do make it on the island and make it up those two murder hills, um, I realize that, or sometimes I think to myself that one day that hill's going to kill me. Um, but when I when I finally make it up to the house, I think to myself, I think that hill's probably what's going to keep me alive.
Well, that is a perfect way to end. Donna Bruns, thank you so much for your time today, and it's been a huge pleasure talking with you.
My pleasure. Super fun to take a trip down memory lane, so to say.